Well, good morning. I did not buy this tie when I moved to Gainesville. I've had this tie for a long time. But it is convenient as a fair weather fan to pull the blue and orange out every now and then. Listen, I say rejoice when others are rejoicing, weep when others are weeping. So when Oregon wins a national championship this year, you can rejoice with me. I do look better in green and yellow. We are going to be here in First Thessalonians, end of chapter 1, but mostly chapter 2 is what we're going to be looking at here. We left off 2 verses from 1 Thessalonians 1 last week, so we're going to get those 2 because I really like them. They're really cool. The whole thing is cool. But I want to make sure we get those last 2 verses, and then we'll be mostly in chapter 2 today. Let me start with a quick word of prayer, and then we're going to get into our text. Let's pray. Almighty Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. We thank you for every great blessing, the little things and the big things, the stuff that's easy to remember and also the stuff we take for granted. We thank you for every breath that we take. We thank you for every drip of water that comes from our sink. We thank you so very much for the material blessings that surround us, our homes and the food in our pantry. We thank you for our health, whatever measure of good health we enjoy. We thank you for the weather, the beauty of this creation. These are just things that are so easy for us to forget about. We just take them for granted, like they're always going to be there. We are thankful for that. Most of all, we're thankful for your Son, Jesus Christ. All other things pale in comparison to what we have in your Son. The richness, the incredible blessing, the heavenly treasures that have been opened up to us in Jesus. Nothing else can compare. Nothing else can replace it. So we thank you so much for that. Please, God, help us to have a great class together. Be with our kids and all their teachers as well. It is always our prayer that when we engage together and with your word, that we will grow spiritually, that we'll grow in our maturity, and that we'll grow in our wisdom. We ask that we would put it into practice. Give us the motivation to not just think these things and hold them like pearls in our pocket, but to go out and share them with others. God, thank you for all these and so many other blessings, and we pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, 1 Thessalonians, let's get into it here. So where we left off before, we've got 2 verses left, verses 9 and 10. I'll go ahead and read verses 9 and 10, then make a couple of comments here, and then we'll move on. We'll try not to linger too long over it, as we do have a lot to get to today. And I'm already getting behind in our class schedule. I should have built in like a gap day somewhere in the quarter. All right, verses 9 and 10 of chapter 1. For they themselves report about us what kind of reception we had with you, and how you turned to God from idols to serve a living and true God, and to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead. That is Jesus, who delivers us from the wrath to come. It's kind of in English, it's kind of a clunky sentence, but I really like the message behind it. For they themselves report about us what kind of reception we had with you. There's a lot of pronouns in there. I get it. But essentially what's going on is, when Paul and his traveling companions were going to other churches, like in Corinth and Achaia and in Macedonia, essentially these other churches like Philippi and Corinth were reporting to Paul about how great the Thessalonians had treated Paul. And you almost think like Paul would go like, well, yeah, I was there, right? I was there. I know how they treated me because I was there, and that's how they treated me. But what it's showing is the reputation of the Thessalonians just spreading far and wide. That other churches, when Paul would come to Corinth, the Corinthians would go, man, we heard about Thessalonica. Their faith is growing. They treated you really well. It's just hard to even believe that there are people out there who just love you as much as they do. And Paul's like, yeah, I know. I was there. Yep, I know. They, the Corinthians, the Philippians, the Macedonians, they reported to us how great you treated us. And I think that if we can have the kind of faith that's put into practice like that, we will do very well. Now, this is not the kind of faith that just does it for show. You don't do good things just so other people can say nice things about you behind your back. We're clear about that, right? That's Matthew chapter 6. And the Pharisees, and they pray long prayers, and they give to charity, and they fast, and the only reason they do it is so that other people will talk about them and say nice things. That's not why you do good things. But if that is the case, that you are living your faith in such a way that other people are talking about you behind your back in a good way, it's probably a good indication that you're living the way you should be living. When other people are saying, yeah, I heard about the hospitality of that person. Their hospitality is known far and wide. I've heard about the way that they love to study with others. They're so evangelistic. Their mind is just always directed to evangelism. I just love the way that they're such good Bible students, and they really dig into the Word, and their knowledge is really great. If people are talking about you behind your back in a good way, that's a good indication that you are living the kind of effusive, faith-filled, faith-behaved sort of life that you should be. So I think that's just a good point to bring out. Now, as for the Thessalonians, the thing that was being reported far and wide was not just their hospitality, but listen, you turned to God, who is alive and powerful, from idols, which are not alive and have absolutely no power. That seems like it should be like a no-duh kind of thing, but give me some examples. I know we talk about modern-day idols a lot, and we don't literally have little statues in our living rooms of the things that we worship, but it's not far from it. It should be no duh that you turn to a living and all-powerful God away from things that are dead and have no power. Why do we find it so hard then? What are some examples of this where it should be no duh, of course you would want God instead of that, but give me some examples of things that just have such allure to us, such power over us, that it's shocking if you just kind of take a step back and look at it objectively. It's shocking that we would allow that to dominate our lives. Give me some examples.
Well, a cell phone.
How about a cell phone? Yeah, exactly. Food. Yeah, food. And you think, well, that's a basic need. Listen, most of us eat a lot more than what our basic need is anyway. And most of us eat in a much more luxurious manner than what is our basic need. John the Baptist figured it out. John the Baptist figured it out. Mike, yeah, I got the most interesting gift this morning. Crickets. And it's not the first time I've eaten crickets, by the way. But John the Baptist figured it out. Could he live without luxury? Yeah. But man, when it comes to food, we eat in such a way that it is like almost shocking that we give ourselves so to such abundance like that. Yeah, Chris.
I'm in hundreds of homes a year running service calls, and people who have little shrines and idols is a real thing.
Absolutely.
It's very obvious when I walk in the door. But what's just as obvious is I often will have someone say, well, my husband will be home to let you in to work on the dishwasher. And I ring the doorbell, I have to wait a minute, finally comes running up almost out of breath, whips over, sits in the kitchen, and runs back, and there's a TV big as the whole wall, and he's playing a video game, and is like acting annoyed that he has to stop and let me in.
Yeah.
I'll have to say, Sir, I need to talk to you about, I need to give you a report here, acts annoyed again. I mean, he's so engrossed in playing a game. I see that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, Chris. It is amazing, whether it's TV or video games, football. I mean, all these things. It's like, if you just take a step back and look at it purely objectively and go like, okay, what would you rather have? The living, all-powerful God who created the universe, has your destiny in his hands, and has commanded you to live by faith that you may inherit a kingdom of heaven, or put 70 hours a week into a job that you hate, just so you can go on one vacation a year and eventually retire to do what? Play golf. Like, objectively, what? I mean, that's no duh, okay? Objectively speaking, that's no duh. But why do we struggle with it so much? Bonnie, you want to throw something in there?
Excuse me. I think we struggle with it because those are things we can see, and God is something we cannot see.
Yeah. And that gets back to what Chris is saying. You know, we act like modern day idolatry is like doesn't exist, but it does. I mean, literally, there are people who have shrines, statues, pictures, icons, whatever they happen to be that are meant to represent a God who is not really a God. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, there are no other gods, right? There is no other God but our God. And that really does happen. But I think part of it is just the fixation on, at least I can see that. I can see it, I can identify it. When I look at it, I can light a little candle in front of it and I can look at it. And listen, the Thessalonians are the same way. We've got the shrine up at the top of the hill. We've got the temple in the middle of town. We've got the little idol that we've got in our living room. And these are stories, these are anchor points culturally, historically, philosophically, religiously for our, for Greek culture. I guess maybe it's just not as no-duh as it seems, right? I think a lot of decisions when it comes to Jesus are like this, though. If you take a step back, the answer is not complicated. Do you want the living God or do you want the God who's not living? It's not complicated, but it is hard. It's not complicated, but it is hard. So to their credit, and this is why Paul brings this out so much, is like this is an achievement for you. This is a huge thing, O Thessalonians, that you turned away from the idols, because most of your neighbors aren't. 90% of your neighbors are not turning. 99% of your neighbors are not turning away from the idols. Every other Thessalonian in town is not turning away from the idols, but you did. You did. And so he goes on in verse 10, and to wait for his Son from heaven. Oh, and see, that's another point there, right? It's one thing to turn away from idols to serve a living God if it is instant gratification. Like, whew, glad we made that choice. It was like instant gratification. We saw the fulfillment of everything. But no, it's you turned from idols to serve a living God, and now you get to wait. You just get to wait. And to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, that is Jesus who delivers us from the wrath to come. Verse 10 really gets to the point, though, okay? I don't know if I've said this yet. I've only been here a couple of months, but there's an idea that I preach about quite a bit, and it finds its way as the thread through a lot of my sermons. There are two main problems that we cannot fix. Okay, we have two huge problems. We cannot fix them. We have no solution. We can't even conceive of a solution for it. Okay, we can fix almost anything else. Like we're very clever. God gave us good brains. If there's a disease, often we can cure it or treat it or find a workaround. If we have an engineering problem, if there's a chasm, we build a bridge. If there's a moon, we go, I think we could do that. We can get to the moon probably. And if we can't, we can certainly make a studio out in Nevada and make a convincing, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not like that. But for most of our problems, we're clever enough that we can fix almost anything. Even God said with the story of the Tower of Babel, like they could do anything. Now, that's got a whole context to it that we don't want to get into, but there's two problems that we can't do anything about: death and sin. You can't. You can delay death and you can try to avoid it, but eventually, are you going to die? Yes, it's inevitable. You are dying. And you have sin. And there's no solution for that either. You can go distract yourself from it. You can go make yourself feel better. You can pretend like it's not there and you can ignore it. But you can't have a solution to it. Jesus is the solution for both of those things. That's what verse 10 is saying. He raised Jesus from the dead and delivers us from the wrath to come. In Jesus, you have the crucifixion, which saves us from our sin, and you have the resurrection, which is Jesus as a forerunner into a new life, the resurrected, raised up life. In Jesus, our two greatest problems are solved. And you can't find that anywhere else. And football doesn't fix it, and money doesn't fix it, and your job doesn't fix it, and a little idol statue in the corner of your living room doesn't fix it. So the Thessalonians realized that they have those two problems and that Jesus fixes those two problems. And for them, it was a clear decision to make. Okay, let's get here. I don't want to get to Colossians 1. This is a companion passage. I recommend you read it. It's like the whole chapter, Colossians 1, 3 through 14, is a companion passage to the second half of 1 Thessalonians 1. But I want to go ahead and move on to 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verses 1 through 4. Let's read together here, verses 1 through 4. For you yourselves know, brethren, that our coming to you was not in vain. But after we had already suffered and been mistreated in Philippi, as you know, we had the boldness in our God to speak to you the gospel of God amid much opposition. For our exhortation does not come from error or impurity or by way of deceit, but just as we have been approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel, so we speak, not as pleasing men, but God, who examines our hearts. Okay, our coming to you is not in vain. It takes a lot to get a beating and pop back up for another round, right? I mean, it's like Rocky, okay? You know, just to take the hits and you get, and just pick yourself back up, shake it off, and keep going. Now, that's what Paul does, though. I'll just make a quick practical application. I find in my life, and this is just kind of just being self-critical here, I find in my life that I almost take it as a badge of honor when I take a beating, and then I kind of dismiss myself from having to do anything else. I take a beating and I go, well, okay, I did that for you, God. I took a black eye for you, so I'm going to take a break now for a while. I've earned it. I've earned a break. I've earned it. It's almost like if I go out there and do something for my faith, and I put my faith out there, we finally build up the courage to confront that coworker. We make a comment about Jesus, and that coworker just throws us down. He's maybe some atheist. He's read like 20 books or something, and he's been on YouTube a lot. And he just smashes us down over and over and over. Well, what about the Amalekites from the Bible? And what about the Nephilim from Genesis? What about the dinosaurs? So we come home from that all beaten up, and we go, all right, well, I did that for you, God. I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. What about Paul? I mean, he goes from this town, and they nearly stoned him to death, and he goes like this, and he goes to the next town. And then they form a mob and a riot in the square, and then he leaves, and he goes like that. And he goes to the next town, and they try to kill him in the middle of the night, and they lower him down in a basket, and he goes like this. Then he goes to the next town, and I just love this idea that when Paul takes a beating, he doesn't use that as an excuse to be like, well, I've done more for you, God, than most people have, so I'm out. I'm checked out. I'm done. Listen, the life of discipleship is push, 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 push. That is the life of discipleship. It is kick the dust from your feet and move on to the next opportunity. It is keep learning, keep growing, keep trying, keep talking, keep loving until the end. Jesus said to his disciples in Matthew 24, it's the one who endures to the end who will be saved. The one who endures till the end. Perseverance is one of the great Christian virtues. We read about perseverance a lot. Romans chapter 5 talks about perseverance. 2 Peter chapter 1 talks about perseverance. I just think we got to just dust ourselves off and just keep going. Paul could have just retired after Philippi and said, I'm done, that's enough. But he tells the Thessalonians, you know that after Philippi, we came to you, we had scars, we had a black eye, our shirt sleeve was ripped off, I was missing a shoe, I don't know where my shoe ended up. But we came to you and we just kept teaching. No matter the condition that we were, we just kept teaching. After we had suffered and been mistreated in Philippi, as you know, we had the boldness in. Now, does that boldness come from like a self-confidence, like I'm so good? We had the boldness in our God. So that's not about just like self-reliance and self-confidence. We had the boldness in our God to speak to you the gospel of God amid much opposition. All right, anything else there through verse 2? I'm going to talk about these other traits that he mentions in verse 3. For our exhortation, and the idea of exhortation is literally, exhortation is to call someone alongside of you, right? It's to call someone alongside of you. Parakaleo, I think is what it is in Greek. Para, alongside, right? With. We did not come to you with an exhortation with any motive except the right motives. And when you look at us, we don't have error or impurity or deceit. Now, Paul's motives were very, very clear. How do you know? I guess I have a question then. Maybe help me understand a little bit. Maybe explore this with me. Is there any way that you can know? Maybe the answer is just no. But is there any way that you can know that someone is coming to you, as Paul says, without error, impurity, or deceit? Can you ever know for certain? Or at the very least, are there some things that you can look at in someone's life? How can you kind of discern? Like, this person is coming from error, impurity, and deceit, but this person seems to be very genuine. What are some ways that you can help discern that? Yeah, Gintis. Oh, good. Follow the money. That's a great point. Yes. And Paul, with the Thessalonians, he points out, when I came to you, did I earn a salary from you? No. If you read on a little bit later, I know we're getting ahead here, and maybe you didn't read on ahead, which is fine, but he points out that when we were with you, we worked to make sure we weren't a burden. We were not going to take anybody's money. We were not there to swindle you. We worked and we took care of ourselves because we just wanted to preach the gospel. Follow the money. Follow the money. Are we being forthcoming about where the money is going? All right, Vaughn?
If you can, check the history.
Good.
And the reputation.
Yeah, history and reputation go a long way, right? History and reputation go a long way. And history with people. Paul wrote to the Corinthians in 2 Corinthians, right? He talks about in 2 Corinthians how there are these people who have letters of commendation, and they always go around with letters of commendation like, well, I met Peter one time. And they go around as if they can show it off like, I've got the credentials. You know what Paul said to the Corinthians? He said, you know who our letter is? You know what our letter is? You are our letter. You are our letter. We have a history with each other. So maybe another way that you can tell, like, is someone here, is it deceitful? Is it whatever? Maybe just go like, has someone put the time in? Did someone put the time in? Did they put the time in when you were at your wit's end and had nothing to offer? Were they still there? Did they come to that hospital bed and pray with you? Did they mow the grass for you when you were down? Did they put the time in? Have they put a couple of years in? Like, I'm new here, and I don't expect, and I'm just being real, I don't expect that some of you in this room will be comfortable talking to me about, like, real stuff for probably 2 or 3 more years. And that's okay. That's okay. Everywhere I've been, and I've been preaching for 23 years now, but everywhere I've been amazed that, like, 2 or 3 years after being somewhere for a while, somebody in the church will kind of come out of the woodwork and finally say, hey, can I meet you at sometime this week? I want to talk to you about something. And they'll finally open up. It took them 2 or 3 years to get comfortable and to, like, trust me, and I'm fine with that, if that's what it takes. Okay, so history, time. Did you put the time in with somebody? And that's a good one also. Yeah, Jeff. Yeah. Yeah, and Jesus talked about that as well, about how our, the things that we say is like fruit that we're bearing. And you can tell a good tree from its good fruit. You can tell a bad tree from its bad fruit. So that's a good point also. What are they saying? And if you have discernment and compare things to the scriptures and pump the brakes a little bit on people, just kind of take their language apart, analyze it a little bit, and put under the microscope a lot of, false teachers will almost always crumble if you just kind of put them under the microscope a little bit. Just analyze what they're saying. Don't get caught up in the moment, the emotion. Because everybody, you listen to Joel Osteen, and if you just don't have any discernment, you go like, yeah, because he's nothing but positive, right? He's positive and motivating, but then like slow it down and go like, wait, let's test that. Let's test that. Let's put that under the microscope for a few minutes. And you can see that, when put to the test. So Paul is saying, listen, we came to you, our exhortation, we called you alongside of us. Our calling you alongside of us was not from error or impurity or deceit, but just as we have been approved in verse 4 to be entrusted with the gospel, so we speak. Not as pleasing men, but God who examines our hearts. And at the end of the day, if someone's not going to trust you, then you've just got to say, well, that's fine. I mean, again, I go back to if it takes you 2 or 3 years to trust me, which is fine. I'm not faulting you for that. If you have to be discerning and listen to your gut. And if you're not ready to talk to me about an addiction that you've got or a sin that you're dealing with or a problem in your marriage, if you're not comfortable talking to me, that's fine. Talk to one of the elders. I'll say talk to one of the elders first anyway. But like he's saying here in verse 4, at the end of the day, God examines my heart. God examines your heart. We've got to let God be the judge of these things. I'm not walking to please you. I am walking to please God. Just as a side reference, Paul talks about that in Galatians chapter 1. That's another great reference just for some studying on your own. He mentions there in Galatians 1, like, am I trying to please men or please God? Because I'll tell you what, if I was trying to please men, I would not be an apostle. If my goal was to please men, I would not do this for a living. All right, let's go on to the next set of verses here. 5 and 6. So he doubles down on this and explains a little bit further what he means by his teaching and his preaching, as he says in verses 5 and 6. For we never came with flattering speech, as you know. That's not the first time he said that, as you know. I like that he keeps using that phrase, as you know. He's like, you remember what it was like. Right? We were there with you. I'm not telling you something you didn't experience, but you were in the room. You saw all of this for yourself. We never came with flattering speech, as you know. I also like this idea that we never came with flattering speech, as you know, right? You can tell when a preacher's trying to butter you up, when a preacher's trying to hit straight with you. As you know, we didn't come with flattering speech. We didn't come with flattering speech. And listen, I've been raked over the coals a time or two in my life, and I can tell when I'm being raked over the coals. That does not feel like flattering speech. I have got, I've, for right reasons, okay, been criticized or said something wrong in a sermon or stuck my foot in my mouth, and someone comes and says, man, that was a really dumb thing that you said. That does not feel like flattering speech. And as you know, you can tell. We did not come to you with flattering speech, nor with a pretext for greed. God is witness, nor did we seek glory from men either, from you or from others. That idea of glory from men, it was in John 5. That's right, John chapter 5. I'm going to read that verse real quick. Jesus said, when you seek the glory from men, there's kind of a natural consequence to that. In John 5, verse 44, how can you believe when you receive glory from one another and you do not seek the glory that is from the one and only God? I thought it was a good side reference there for that passage. Seeking the glory from men. We weren't seeking glory from men, either from you or from others, even though as apostles of Christ we might have asserted our authority. What do you think about that phrase? Even though as apostles of Christ we might have asserted our authority. Did Paul let a little pride slip there, or is that an appropriate thing for him to say? What do you think about Paul just kind of like slipping that in, like as apostles, we could have asserted our authority. Why does he say it in that manner? What do you think he's trying to get across there?
Stars. I mean, So if they went to different areas, they could be treated and accept
Yeah.
flattery, accept gifts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Paul was well known. Like, people knew who Paul was. Like I said, back from 2 Corinthians, Paul talks about those who go around with letters of commendation. If you had a letter of commendation from Peter or John or James or Andrew, or even one of the ones that you forget about, because there were 12 of them, like, just the fact that you're like, yeah, man, I grew up in Galilee. I was good friends with the Zebedees. Good people. Love those Zebedees. Like, name dropping. The fact that you could go drop names of the apostles in any church all around the Mediterranean, all around the Roman world. I mean, he could have come in and demanded. He could have come in and, put his foot down on things. He could have come in and said, well, because I'm an apostle, I can do this. Let me ask you then, we're just rhetorically here. We're just thinking through this. Leadership in the church. If an elder wanted to, could an elder go to, I don't know, 1 Peter chapter 5, and very clearly say in verse 5, you younger men likewise be subject to your elders. Could an elder come in and say, you have to do it because 1 Peter 5:5 says so? I'm an elder, you're not, do it. Could an elder do that? I mean, I guess so. And he'll be judged for that, whether right or wrong. My responsibility is you younger men likewise submit to your elders. I'll submit to my elders. I will. And I've submitted to elders over the years, and I've thought that's not how I would do it. That's not how I would go about that. I'm not sure that's how I would do it, but you younger men likewise submit to your elders. Could an elder just stomp his foot and say, I'm an elder, you're not, do it? Sure, but is that the best way to do it? I think Paul gives us a good example. I'm an apostle. I could just tell you to do it. But I don't. Because that's not the best way to do it. It's not the most compelling way to do it. Good leadership, just as good preaching, just as good teaching, just as good coaching, right? Whatever it happens to be. You could say, drop down and give me 20. Why? Because I'm your coach. Do it. Okay, you could. It's not always the best way to do it, though. And I like the wisdom of Paul here. As an apostle, I could have asserted my authority, but I didn't. Instead, how does Paul describe himself in the coming verses? What is the analogy that he uses as a nursing mom? I could have come in and stomped my foot, told you to do it because I said so, but I didn't. No, in verse 7, we prove to be gentle among you as a nursing mother tenderly cares for her own children. And listen, realistically, if you've been a parent, there are times to put your foot down. I get it. I totally understand that. And we're stern with our children when we need to be. Don't worry about that. I'm not kind of new age parent or something like that. We're stern with our kids, and we've got lines, and there's discipline aplenty in our household. But sometimes you look at your kids and you go, I don't know. Sometimes just stomping your foot with your kids is not the best way to go about it. Especially with a baby, right? Can you just yell at a baby and a baby is just like, oh, okay, I didn't realize it. Sorry. You can't just yell at a baby and go go to sleep. It's 3 a.m. That doesn't work. That's the opposite of working. That's destructive, in fact. And so he says, we could have put our foot down and exerted our authority, but we didn't. We were like nursing mothers. We cared for you. We brought you along gently. We nudged you. We just guided you through this process. And it's such a beautiful analogy. And I like later on, skip down a couple of verses in verse 11, just as you know how we were exhorting and encouraging and imploring each one of you as a father would his own children. And so he's got kind of both ends of that, mother and father, all right? And I understand that I don't want to say that every stereotype about mothers and fathers is always true in every marriage, in every relationship. Okay, blah, 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 done. But when you've got the love and the tenderness of the mother, but then the other side of it is the exhorting, encouraging, and imploring of the father, you've kind of got both ends of the parenting thing covered there. Because do we need both of that? Yeah. We need to have someone, and whether it's your father or it was a father figure in your life, if you didn't grow up with a father, whatever your circumstance was, we need to have people in our lives that push us, that drive us, that implore us, and that will correct us and discipline us, who motivate us to get out there and conquer the world. But do we also not need people in our lives who, when the world pushes us down and we're hurt, that we can go to someone and receive tender care from that person to recover from a bad day? And I love that Paul and his traveling companions were like that we could be tender and loving and careful when we needed to be, but we could also be like a father imploring you, saying, come on, you got to get out there. You got to rub some dirt in it and move on. Right? We need both of those things out of leadership. And we need people in our lives who can be like that. All right, thank you so much. Appreciate all your comments, your listening, your participation. We'll pick up there when we get back next Sunday.
Son of my soul, thou Savior dear, it is not night if thou be near. O may no earth-born cloud arise to hide thee from thy servant.